Hi everybody, it is time for a video of the book that we read just to make sure that you heard all the words and are able to use it to help you with your graphic organizer. So the title of the book was Caps for Sale, and we know that a cap is similar to a hat. Usually it's sort of flatter and it has a front brim rather than a brim that goes all the way around. So that's why we call it a cap. Once there was a peddler who sold caps, but he was not like an ordinary peddler. Remember, a peddler is somebody who sells things by wandering around and selling them. Carrying his wares on his back, in a sack, he carried them on top of his head. First, he had it on his own checked cap, there. Then a bunch of gray caps, then a bunch of brown caps, then a bunch of blue caps, and on the very top, a bunch of red caps. He walked up and down the streets, holding himself very straight so as not to upset his caps. As he went along, he called, "Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." One morning, he couldn't sell any caps. He walked up the street and he walked down the street calling, "Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." But nobody wanted any caps that morning. Nobody even wanted a red cap. He began to feel very hungry, but he had no money for lunch. "I think I'll go for a walk in the country," said he. And he walked out of town slowly, slowly, so as not to upset his caps. So he's hungry, but he doesn't have any money. Hoping later on somebody will buy a cap, right? He walked for a long time until he came to a great big tree. "That's a nice place for a rest," he thought. And he sat down very slowly under the tree and leaned back little by little against the tree trunk so as not to disturb the caps on his head. Then he put up his hand to feel if they were straight. First his own checked cap, then the gray caps, the brown caps, the blue caps, and the red caps on the very top. They were all there, so he went to sleep. He slept for a long time. He hadn't had much to eat, and he was tired of walking. When he woke up, he was refreshed and rested. But before standing up, he felt with his hand to make sure his caps were in the right place. All he felt was his own checked cap. He looked to the right of him, no caps. He looked to the left of him, no caps. He looked in back of him, no caps. He looked behind the tree, no caps. Then he looked up into the tree. And what do you think he saw? On every branch sat a monkey. On every monkey was a gray or a brown or a blue or a red cap. What's he going to do? Well, this is important. You remember, first he was selling his caps. Then he stopped to rest. Then he woke up and found his caps were missing. The peddler looked at the monkeys. The monkeys looked at the peddler. He didn't know what to do. Finally, he spoke to them. "You monkeys, you," he said, shaking a finger at them. "You give me back my caps." But the monkeys only shook their fingers back at him and said, "Tss, tss, tss, tss," because they don't know what he said, so they're just kind of copying him, right? This made the peddler angry, so he shook both hands at them and said, "You monkeys, you give me back my caps." But the monkeys only shook their hands back at him and said, "Tss, tss, tss, tss." Now he felt quite angry. He stamped his foot and he said, "You monkeys, you better give me back my caps." But the monkeys only stamped their feet back at him and said, "Tss, tss, tss, tss." So here he is stamping his foot. Just want to make sure you can see all the pictures of him. But first he was shaking his finger. Whoops. Then he was shaking his fists. Then he stamped his foot. By this time, the peddler was really very, very angry. He stamped both his feet and shouted, "You monkeys, you must give me back my caps." Now remember, this is very important to him because that's where he's going to get money from. But the monkeys only stamped both their feet back at him and said, "Tch, tch, tch, tch." At last, he became so angry that he pulled off his own cap and he threw it on the ground and he began to walk away. Now remember what the monkeys were doing before. But then each monkey pulled off his cap. See them? And all the gray caps, and all the brown caps, and all the blue caps, and all the red caps came flying down out of the tree. So the peddler picked up his caps and put them back on his head. First his own check cap, then the gray caps, then the brown caps, then the blue caps, then the red caps on the very top. And slowly, slowly, he walked back to town calling, "Caps, caps for sale, 50 cents a cap." And that was the end of the story, the last thing that happened. All right, best of luck with those graphic organizers. Bye.